This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by the Marketing Masters. The Marketing Masters is a boutique marketing agency offering website development and digital marketing services to small and medium businesses across America. For more information on how they can help you grow your business online, please visit themarketingmasters.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. We're so excited to have with us today, back on the Impact Podcast 6 years later, Mathy Stanislaus. He's the interim director of the Global Battery Alliance World Economic Forum. Welcome back now to Impact Podcast, Mathy.
Thanks, John. Well, I look forward to this conversation.
And so do I. Batteries are such a hot topic, but last time we spoke with you, you were working for the Obama administration over at the EPA. And for our listeners who haven't heard that edition of our broadcast, tell them a little bit about your background leading up to Obama and all your great environmental work, and now in this very important role as the interim director of the Global Battery Alliance.
Yeah, sure. My background, by training, I'm a chemical engineer and environmental lawyer. Before I joined the Obama administration, I did a lot of work to try to align social justice with business drivers and local government. I really believe that if you want to have the transformation in the globe, really requires that alignment. I used to lead a not-for-profit in New York City to bring real estate, finance, community-based organizations to really build and redevelop communities through a community-based planning program. And I took that with me to the Obama administration and basically scaled that up nationally and really internationally. Really try to link up, the areas of community-based building, the areas of climate change restoration, the areas of energy transformation, but do it in a way that looks at policy as a floor, then building upon that, how do we kind of spur kind of this innovation that brings community, business, and government together. From there, I'd done a little bit of work with the World Economic Forum, and I led the work with the G7 on behalf of the U.S. government, looking at the role of supply chains, looking at a particular focus of the auto sector and how aligning government and the private sector on a supply chain can be really crucial to address climate change and materials reduction. So I've done a bit of work in scaling up this circular economy platform with the World Economic Forum, and now I'm currently the director of the Global Battery Alliance. The Global Battery Alliance, I'll give three of the major areas of focus. One is to really scale up batteries so that it can reduce greenhouse gases in the transportation energy sector, which is responsible for 40% of greenhouse gases globally. And we believe we can reduce greenhouse gases by 30% of the Paris goals. Secondly, we also need to address what I call the dark underbelly of electrification no one wants to talk about. That is so much of the key materials, cobalt, lithium, nickel, comes with it potential human rights abuses, potential environmental abuses. So we really need to have eyes wide open and make sure that we focus in on the far back end. And the other major opportunity is to really provide access to electricity to communities that currently do not have access to clean energy. And we're really currently focusing on Africa. If you transform from dirty diesel to clean energy, you not only increase the public health dimension, you increase productivity, you increase educational levels. So those are our three prongs of our effort.
That's wonderful. And, I applaud you. You have what a stellar career in doing things that really make the world a better place. I love having people like you on. I do this show for a reason. It's a mission. I don't take any advertising dollars, Mathy, but you're the exact reason I have this show, because you are making an impact, and you have a history, a career of making important impacts and making the world a better place. So first of all, I just thank you for all the great work you did back under Obama administration, back in New York, and now at the Global Battery Alliance. This is such important work, way beyond the environment. Like you said, it's these human rights opportunities and violation opportunities, and also figuring that out. This is a really big issue. And it seems as though when it comes to the circular economy, this is a growing issue because, as we know, electronics, Matty, is the fastest growing solid waste stream in the world. And now electronics, so many of the electronics we use, whether it's our wearables or basically our EV cars, which have become computers on wheels, have these lithium ion batteries in them, which are full of the cobalt, the nickel, the lithium ion, or what is called the black mass. Let's break this down, though. This partnership that you're heading up now is made up of 70 members. Can you give our listeners and our viewers a taste of who the members are and why they joined this alliance?
Sure. On the private side, everything from mining and minerals processing companies to battery and automobile and EV companies to some of the world's largest tech companies. On the public side, we have a number of the UN agencies. We have a number of governments who are former members. We have the Canadian government. We have the Japanese government, the Democratic Republic of Congo. We're also engaged with the European Union, and recently, we re-engaged the United States government.
Right.
And equally important, we have what outside of the U.S. calls civil society organizations, in the U.S. calls non-governmental organizations, really bringing the activists, the community voice to the table at a level playing field.
Got it. And I've been reading about solutions now, companies that say they're going to recycle lithium ion batteries, such as Redwood Materials, such as Li-Cycle up in Canada. Talk a little bit about, are you hopeful that we're going to be able to close a circular economy in this very important part of the ESG space and be able to now do the last mile and recycle the lithium, the cobalt, the nickel, what is called maybe the last mile of the electronics, chain, and now repurpose these materials back into new batteries? What does this look like as you step back and you have this great alliance now with all these various stakeholders?
Yeah. Well, I'm both an advocate and a skeptic of circular economy.
Okay. Fair enough.
I think circular economy is a great vision, but what I find is quite weak is the really disciplined to put in place the levers for change that is data driven and science driven. So first, I think that we have to look at it from a life cycle based perspective, looking at all the life cycle stages and figuring out where are the greatest impact and the greatest opportunity. And not every product offers circularity or offers the same kind of circularity. So for example, EV batteries, there are huge opportunities before we talk about recycling to extend the life of batteries and then identifying second uses of EV batteries for energy storage. So I think we should maximize that and provide the policy and financial inducement, everything from design to disassembly, right, everything from addressing standards for second use, everything from enabling repair and refurbishment. So one of my concerns is we skip just to recycling without maximizing the hierarchy of circularity in a real intentional way. So I think people should really focus in on that. And I think there's the other, I think the regulatory nudges or a floor is crucially important, but we also need to recognize the leading businesses are suffering from the market not recognizing that they're leading, and so we have a lot of greenwashing out there, so we need to have a real more a rigorous a mechanism. So one of the things we're working on is a data-driven mechanism, something called the Global Battery Passport,
Okay.
which is enabling access and authentication and verification of data throughout what we call the battery ecosystem, the battery value chain, from mining to make sure that we are able to trace that is coming from a reliable source, not a corrupt source, a source that does not use child labor, right? And then on greenhouse gases, making sure we have authenticated greenhouse gases, water impacts and all of that. So one, we want to be able to have downstream users and the upstream users to be able to have the same standardized data so that, we really can reward the best actors in the planet. And frankly, not reward those that don't invest in the best performances, the least impact, making sure there's no corruption and child labor. No, and we also need to enable the market pull, provide enough information for consumers to make informed decisions. So, we're in the first time in humanity, we have an ability to have data drive authentic decisions. So no longer can a company, downstream company, say, there's no way for us to know. Yes, there is. You have to really invest in the data infrastructure. And I think similar to governments and consumers is how do we create data access, protecting certain data, enabling certain data to make more rigorous informed decisions. And I will just give one point of data. One of the largest EV companies told me that no longer, this is the number one financer told them that we do not want to see another sustainability report from you. No, we need data to speak to the truth. So a number of organizations, BlackRock, for example, are all saying, listen, we don't want your sustainability reports anymore. We want a database affirmation. It helps you, it helps the community, helps us make financing decisions, and helps consumer make informed decisions.
Wow. So the data is really where people want to focus now, and that's where the hockey puck is going, you feel, in the future, huh, Matty?
Yeah. I mean, I think data, you really can't talk about sustainability. You can't talk about responsibility. You can't talk about leveling the playing field without talking about, as an example, we do a lot of work with the European Union Commission. And as a result of all the work, their draft regulations are recognizing our global passport, our data infrastructure to drive accountability and responsibility.
You mentioned the dark underbelly of human rights violations. Is that still in 2021? It's hard to believe that that's still going on, but can you flesh that out for our viewers and our listeners and explain where that fits in this whole, in this story? So it's important for that to bring light to that, because what we can disinfect, what we put sunshine on, but if we don't know, we really can't fix the problem.
Yeah, I'll give two examples on both ends of the production chain.
Okay.
One is cobalt.
Okay.
Cobalt is a critical ingredient currently to make lithium-ion batteries. You really can't make lithium-ion batteries without it. 70% of the sourcing comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And depending who you listen to, a substantial percentage, it could be a majority, is produced using children, right? And so, it's been widely scrutinized, a number of reports by Amnesty International, Greenpeace, and a number of the downstream companies, auto companies, have said, we need to address this problem. So, but this is really difficult work. So, child labor in the DRC in a place that has a degree of poverty is easier said than done, right? So you need to not just say no, you need to invest in the systems to improve the conditions in the DRC, provide alternative livelihood, enable worker training to enable adults to work, it's a whole ecosystem. So we've done work with creating a fund, working with UNICEF to invest in job training and education. And that we're now building this data construct to hold companies accountable for the chain of custody. Cobalt mined, where does it go? Can we confirm that it's not going to corrupt means? So that's the one dimension of human rights as child labor. There are multiple of other dimensions of human rights. There's indigenous rights that associated with lithium that needs to be addressed. On the far other end, the global electric transformation still is going to rely on recycling at the back end, and lead acid batteries is still going to be part of our future. So a recent study by UNICEF and a group called the Pure Earth concludes that 1 in 3 children in the globe still suffers from lead poisoning. And lead poisoning relates to developmental disability, intellectual disability, and it's most pronounced in emerging countries. We have really haphazard informal sector operations. So we recently issued a report about best practices, and we're doing this event in India about how can they address best practices, they address even kind of equalizing the level playing field so that you could actually have this taxation scheme which actually pushes the recycling markets underground and be done by the informal sector. So I give you 2 examples of where human rights abuses are occurring and the real importance of electrification is sexy, EV is sexy, but we need to have equal attention and visibility and scrutiny by everyone so that the hard to do stuff on both sides gets done.
Got it. And for our listeners that just joined us and our viewers, we have Mathy Stanislaus on with us. He's the interim director of the Global Battery Alliance. You can find Mathy on his LinkedIn at Mathy-Stanislaus, Stanislaus on LinkedIn, or at the weforum.org/global-battery-alliance/home. It's a great group and an important group of 70 or so partnering companies and organizations, including companies in the value chain, the public sector, civil society, and other important issues. Mathy, why is fixing this battery issue important or crucial to achieving the Paris goals that we've just, as you say, signed back on to?
Yeah. Well, so we think, 40+% of the greenhouse gases are due to energy production and transportation.
Okay.
Right. And at the heart of reducing greenhouse gases, and we believe through an optimization of batteries in vehicles and in fixed storage, it can achieve 30% of the Paris goals, the transportation and energy sector. It can do this in a number of ways. One is optimizing batteries, the circularity of batteries, as we were discussing earlier, extending the life of batteries, repurposing batteries, and recovering quality materials from batteries can reduce the cost of batteries in EVs by about 23%, which we think can increase the demand of EVs by 35%. So one of the big keys of scaling up EVs is reducing the cost of batteries.
Okay, got it.
The other area is the area of either fixed storage, or I'm going to call it interim storage, and I'll come back to it, is renewable energy is a intermittent source of energy at this moment, right? So basically that means that only when the wind is blowing, only when the sun is up, can you extract energy for use at the point of production, right?
Oh.
So the key to being able to maximize the use of renewable energy is be able to store that energy when needed, right? The other thing that people don't think about is unless we fix and enable storage, you will never take away the dirtiest of dirty energy production, which occurs on the hottest days of the year,
Oh,
right? So the dirtiest facilities with the least pollution control, are called peaking plants, right?
okay.
So those are plants that come on, typically in the hottest parts of the summer to provide the reliable energy that we demand,
Right.
right? So battery storage is a key for one, maximizing the use of renewable energy, but maximizing renewable energy, you then put pressure and you eliminate first the dirtiest peakers and then bringing down all of the fossil fuel generation. So battery storage, both fixed, meaning fixed storage on the grid, and then it has begun in Europe. There's been a bit of work in China is using uh, using batteries in vehicles as an interim storage device. So, for example, the Biden administration has committed to electrification of bus fleets and school fleets. So, what the opportunity is that when they are not being used for transporting kids or
Right. Right.
people, you
Right.
could connect it to the grid, and then they could then be a battery storage device. And then what can happen? There's a whole theory of arbitraging, which means that you can, grab energy that's being produced is not being used at a low price, and then sell it out on a bigger price. So I'm working on um, this model with a big energy company which would reduce the local pollution in an area, which would tie renewable energy, fixed storage, the leasing of pooled buses, which could result in a 25% reduction in the utility cost for a local municipality. So this is the possibility of when you start looking at this in a more collaborative, intentional way.
You know, Matty, I love what you're doing at the Global Battery Alliance. These are big ideas, and this is big. You're taking on some of the biggest environmental and human rights challenges that we've ever had discussed on this podcast in this program. How long will this take? I mean, you're a seasoned veteran, both a law expert, a chemical engineer. You have all the relationships. Is this something that can be achieved in the next 1 or 2 years, or is this a 10-year project to achieve a lot of the goals you're aiming for? What's your vision on that?
Our vision is, we need to, and we've already hit the ground, we need to accelerate and hit the ground. And frankly, the US has been MIA for some obvious reasons,
Right, right.
So, but I do think that it's a mistake to think of it just as a regulatory issue versus a private sector issue, right?
Okay.
So yes, we need to put in place the regulatory programs, mandates for reducing emissions. We also need to put in what I call enabling policies, enabling policies of data to reduce costs and enable innovation. We need to level the playing field, so that the risk takers who've done, the leading edge battery companies and EV companies need to be rewarded. Frankly, we need to invest significantly in the battery market in the U.S. The recycling markets in the U.S. So we need to do all of those things at the same time. I know it sounds, but unless we do that, I'm not going to get too provincial here, but
Right.
currently China dominates every segment of the value chain. They are the number one processor of the key minerals for electrification. They are the number one manufacturer of batteries currently. They throw heavily subsidies to that. Europe has now put in a multi-billion-dollar investment in trying to secure battery markets, battery production there. So I do think the U.S. needs to get in there and go really big, in terms of investment. No, the last thing I will say, but maybe not the last thing I will say,
Okay.
is that we need to take the utility policies and the utility infrastructure from the dark ages,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
So,
That's
so
fair.
I mean, we've had utility policies into being able to readily allow battery storage into grids, being able to put smart charging into grids to enable all of this. That needs to happen. And frankly, utilities move very slowly.
Right.
Utility, have gone from a heavily regulated as industry to, I would say, mixed regulated and some privatized. But a lot of the legacy is still that they are, quite slow to change. And
Mhm.
and we have the need to have utility companies and battery companies and EV companies and government to speak at the same table for the first time ever, because they've never been at that table. So, and this is where I think like a forward-leaning, not just government and private sector needs to come to the table in a pre-competitive way to solve these intractable problems. Because if we don't solve the infrastructure side, if all we do is carbon pricing and regulation, and
Yeah.
we don't solve the infrastructure side, we will not achieve our Paris targets.
Do you feel that with you as the interim director of the Global Battery Alliance, and with those 70 or so members that, like you say, come from all different interesting backgrounds, it's just not industry, it's government, it's industry, it's all sorts of stakeholders. And with this new battery, and with this new Biden administration, this 4-year window, do you think you could accomplish this stuff in that 4-year window now that you have everybody, you're leading this group, and you also have sort of everybody under this umbrella organization? Is that going to, that with the politics being more favorable, will that be the wind at your back to get a lot of this done and bring the United States into modern times?
I believe so, and I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it
Uh,
doesn't sound like it.
Yeah. So
uh,
I do think that if you may not see the result in 4 years,
okay.
but we need to put in place all the elements of it. We need to put in place the regulatory mandates of it. We need to put in place the enabling policies. Data policies, financial incentives, so that can then be having the add-on effect of nurturing innovation in the private sector, leveling the playing field. So that will have a cascading effect. What we project, again, if we optimize these systems, we think we could achieve the 30% reduction by 2030, right? So we
Right.
have a 2050 goal of net zero, right?
Wow.
But we can't wait for 2050, right? We
Right.
have to go heavy. We got to go hard on the policy side, on the financing side. I mean, let me just spend a moment on financing.
Yeah. Yeah.
The I think it's crucial that the U.S. catch up with the rest of the world on what I'll call blended financing. The government needs to come to the table to de-risk certain investments, de-risk certain infrastructure. So the European Union is putting multi-billions of dollars to nurture its battery business, because there is a little bit of uncertainty, in terms of infrastructure investment, in terms of investing in cell technology and cell development. So I think that um, direct resources, incentivized resources, maybe even reduced tax treatment is really crucial to be able to realize this opportunity. So again, mandates, nudges, blended financing, and then working with the private sector leaders, and frankly, holding the laggards accountable at the same time.
Right, right, right. And like you said, it's not all policy and government, but it's great when that's the wind at your back and it's not the wind at your face anymore. So now you have that at your back, and now you got this whole great organization. You can make this stuff happen now.
Yeah, yeah. For those who think this is U.S. versus the world or world versus the U.S., and listen, both in the European Union policies and the Biden policies, they all include this trade requirement around carbon, right? So what that means is and I've always said that the biggest harm in the last 4 years was to the U.S. business, because you're sending the signal that you don't need to decarbonize. That may work in the U.S., but listen, we're in a global economy,
It's
right?
right.
You've set U.S. businesses behind in terms of selling in Europe and even selling in China, you know.
Huh.
So I mean, right, for the future, you will not be able to sell the products if if you don't demonstrate a certain greenhouse gas goal. You know, so.
Got it. Hey, for our listeners and viewers to find Matty and his great colleagues and all the important work they're doing, please go to weforum.org/global-battery-alliance/home, or you can find and connect with Matty on his LinkedIn at Mathy Stanislaus, Stanislaus on LinkedIn. Matty, I'm so glad you came back on Impact to share your journey. You're doing such important work. Honest to gosh, I do this show because of great people like you. You're not only making an impact, you're making the world a better place. The truth is, we need to clone you. We need more of you. And I'm so hopeful after this discussion, because you are the right person to be running the Global Battery Alliance and tackling these very important issues that are actually very complicated as well. Thank you for being a guest again. You're always welcome back. And I wish you continued success, good health, and just thank you for all the great work you do. Just thank you.
Thanks, John, and thanks for having me again. Looking forward to continuing our conversation in the future.
Of course.
Take care.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Trajectory Energy Partners. Trajectory Energy Partners brings together landowners, electricity users, and communities to develop solar energy projects with strong local support. For more information on how Trajectory is leading the solar revolution, please visit trajectoryenergy.com.